Well, how's it going, everyone? It's going to be one of those live streams. Move that up a little. There we go. Now I can see y'all better. It's so a lot seems to happen in the world when it comes to pastors and ministers and all that sort of stuff. I'll just take the hat off. One week it's Bruxy Cavey. One week it's Mark Driscoll again. One week it's James McDonald. One week it's Bill Hybels. One week and so on and so forth. And so this is not going to be a juicy, tell-all kind of thing. I'm not going to go down that rabbit trail. But I wanted to kind of give you an update on what I'm seeing with Chandler and with all these sorts of things that are going on. And then talk a bit about the culture that seems to foster this sort of stuff. Let me know if this is too loud. Mr. Green, I just took my hat off, but I tip it to you. And so give me 1 sec, setting this all up. Just make sure nothing explodes and all that. But yeah, there seems to be a cultural thing kind of going on with all of this. And I kind of wanted to talk a bit about that, then move into Ask Me Anything, theology nerd, New Testament stuff. But thank you, Mr. Green. That's very helpful to know. But I'll pull up. This is very professional, I assure you. All right. There we go. Appreciate y'all's patience on that. I will eventually figure out how to live stream, but do not have the time or money or, at this point, patience. Nolan's asleep right now. But I'm pulling up the article right now and all of that. And one of the things that just my initial gut was, yeah, you're not the only one, Mr. Green. We'll talk about that. Oh boy, we will. One of the things that's bothered me about the whole thing, and I'll read through the article right now, in a sec. But one of the things that I'm noticing so much is this never feels like an isolated incident. It always feels like it just kind of keeps happening over and over, and so you're kind of left wondering what on earth is going on. Theologians you love, theologians you don't, pastors you love, pastors you don't. There seems to be just all this sort of stuff kind of happening, right? And I figured I'd just read Julie Roy's article. I generally trust Julie Roy's stuff. I mean, I do have some quibbles here and there, but I wanted to read this to you. So this is the Roy's report, and I'll link it in chat right now, or at least someone will link it in chat right now. I'll post, actually, never mind, I'll ignore that. I'll post it in the live stream once all this is done, because I'm professional, don't you know? Super professional here. So the title of the article, and this was released August 29th, and Christianity Today has reported on it. I'm going to try to avoid the juicy gossip. I've got my own thoughts on what's happened or may have happened, but I want to avoid that sort of thing. But here's what it's called. Matt Chandler steps aside after admitting inappropriate online relationship. And that was August 29th. And let me scroll to the bottom just to make sure. This story, and at the bottom it says, this story has been updated to include the story about Karen Hinckley and video excerpt of Matt's past remarks. So I don't know if I want to read the whole thing. It's very aggravating to read, to be honest. A little bit of my background with Matt. I don't know the guy personally. I've never met him. I've never been in the same room with him. I don't even know if I've ever been in the same state as him, except when we drove the Triangle in Texas. So I don't know Matt. My first experience was reading and reviewing the explicit gospel that he wrote or co-wrote or was under his name. I don't know how that all works when you're a big pastor. And I thought it was a profoundly mediocre book with some really troubling kind of boorish stuff in there. The throwaway comment page on complementarianism and egalitarianism, as y'all know, my thoughts on that issue was just petty. It was Theo petty stupid. Like it contributed nothing and it didn't do anything. At the end of the day, it was a bit of Theo Bro virtue signaling. So I don't come into this going like, oh, Matt's a good guy. Matt's wonderful. I'm on his side. You know what I mean? I don't come in here with that. I try to give everyone the benefit of the doubt, but in the sense of I want to hear what happened and I want to hear what's going on. But at this point, I don't know how much to give Matt because there's just not enough to give. So that's my background with Matt. So a tearful Matt Chandler, pastor of the Village Church and president of Acts 29 on past Sunday, confessed an inappropriate online relationship with a woman other than his wife and said he is taking a leave of absence. Though the relationship was not, and this is, I'm quoting directly from Julie Royce, although the relationship was not romantic or sexual, Chandler said it was, quote, unguarded and unwise. He added that TVC, the Village Church, elders felt Chandler's, quote, inability to see the relationship for what it was, quote, revealed something not right, something unhealthy in me, end quote. The volume, quote, and continuing on, the volume of exchanges and the familiarity which played itself out in kind of coarse and foolish joking is just not okay for someone who has been put in the position that God has placed me in, Chandler said. Quote, I don't know if that's tied to the pace I run or the difficulty of the last 6-7 years, but I agree with the elders. Yo, Roddy, what's up? And so in their grace to me and my family, they've decided, and again, I think they're right, to put me on a leave of absence. Chandler, 48, has pastored TVC, a high-profile Southern Baptist megachurch in the Dallas-Fort Worth area since 2002. Chandler's also served as president of Acts 29 Church Planting since 2012, and that's why Acts 29 determined that its founder, or that's when Acts 29 determined that its founder, former Mars Hill pastor Mark Driscoll, was disqualified from ministry and replaced Driscoll with Chandler. According to Chandler, his misconduct first came to light several months ago when a woman approached Chandler outside the church foyer with concerns about how he was direct messaging a friend of hers on Instagram. I forgot about that part. Chandler said at first he didn't think he had done anything wrong, but he immediately reported the woman's account to Elder Chairman Jason Swords and TVC lead pastor Josh Patterson. Chandler said he also shared the woman's concerns with his wife, Lauren. So again, this is just from Julie's reporting. Making sure nothing's exploded. Let me know in the chat if something explodes. Will you? Just explosion emojis. In a statement posted online, TVC said the elders then commissioned an independent law firm to review Chandler's messaging history on social media platforms, cell phone, and email. So apparently they're doing a deep dive into all this. And Julie Roy's apparently, and this of course is all what it is coming out, it's not as clear cut as a independent investigation. And that's according to Julie Roy's on Twitter. I'm not going to go down the rabbit hole of that. And so on and so forth. And so they're very strongly affirming a sort of nothing sexual or of that nature happened, right? And so people across Twitter, say like Beth Allison Barr or others, you know, just all these sorts of folks. And this is not the first time Chandler's been involved in controversy, right? So it's, you know, maybe I'll read the article more on that. But the fact that it's one of those odd things where it's like, is this a character issue? Is this a temperament issue? Is this what is going on here? And so it's one of those things where the church looks like it's being incredibly transparent, but not necessarily about the thing that they need to be transparent on, if that makes sense. And so looking at the whole thing, you know, as someone who's involved in pastoral ministry, who's counseled people, who's in counseling right now, just being perfectly frank with y'all, it's one of those things where you look at this sort of state of things, right? Excuse me. And you begin to wonder if there's what are the common themes here. And I'm not trying to dunk on, say, complementarianism or Acts 29, but there is a sense in which you start seeing a lot of the same people getting into same sorts of things over and over and over again. Maybe Matt can get back into his DeLorean and then go back and not say what he said. Yeah, maybe straight back down the corridors of time, right? And I wonder if there's something to that, because I think it's too easy just to go, oh, well, complementarian's the issue, or Acts 29's the issue. Although Acts 29 has had issues of abuse, as the article points out. The CEO or one of the head dudes was basically terminated because of that, and some people were apparently fired because they called for that. And so it sounds like it's a pretty cutthroat, unpleasant place to be, just being brutally honest. Doesn't sound like a very, very pleasant place. and all that sort, according to the article that Julie Royce has put out. And so you look at pastoral abuse, right? And you see this sort of stuff. Chandler is known as kind of an aggressive pastor, kind of while Mark Driscoll is more wants to be liver king. Chandler is kind of the step, like the son-in-law of liver king, right? There's a sort of adjacent kind of hyper masculinity, chest thumpery, machismoism. And, it's not that Chandler is like a brute or anything like that. I don't know the guy. But you see this sort of attitude where there's a willingness to kind of condescend and lecture and kind of snarl at people. And we've seen Chandler do this. I mean, the video at the Village Church, or the excerpt from the Elephant Room Conference in 2011, where he just went off, and you can read that in the article as well. Julie kind of takes him to task for that, rightly so. But you look at it and go, maybe there's something to be said about the temperament and character of what passes for pastors in this world. Because what a lot of times people prioritize is not character. They say they want character, but at the end of the day, they want a leader. They want a sort of person. They want a king. They want a Solomon. They want a King David. They all want some sort of big figure to lead, to take charge, to take initiative, to kind of throw their weight around and move the ship forward, move the bus forward. And it doesn't matter what's behind the bus after you plow through the crowd, right? For those who get the reference. And so I think the American church has strongly capitulated to one, corporatism, but also this sort of, we would rather have a strong leader than a good leader, because a good leader can change his or her mind. A good leader will prioritize empathy and listening, not at the expense of strength, but because they are strong. And those sorts of things. And you see in a lot of these Acts 29 churches, and not all Acts 29. I know several ministers personally who are involved in TGC Acts 29. I'm not throwing them under the bus. I'm talking about what seems to be a human tendency or culture or attitude that has been involved in church, or at least has become the strong voice of church. And that is the strong alpha leader. And I think we're beginning to see the fruits of that, to be honest. And I'll look at chat right now. Pardon me, I was focused on something else. Roddy thinks maybe it's Matt's Calvinism. I don't know, Matt. I don't know Matt's Calvinism very well. From what I read in Explicit Gospel, it's not particularly insightful or interesting. But I don't know his Calvinism, really. I don't know him as a Calvinist. I know he is a Calvinist, but I don't know him as a Calvinist. Mr. Green points out, charismatic talking heads seem to be the preferred type of pastoring in some circles. I think that's many circles, to be honest. And that maybe brings it back. So maybe what people are looking for is more than what I suggested. So maybe I'll nuance it a bit. You've got a sense of, you want the strong alpha leader, right? The person. But you also want the person that'll parrot the things that you want to hear, right? So you want a Tucker Carlson, you want a Keith Olbermann, you want a Rachel Maddow, you want a Ben Shapiro, you want a Jordan Peterson, you want a Donald Trump, you want a Joe Biden. You want someone that'll just, quote unquote, tell it straight. Will just throw truth in your face and punch you in the jaw and just boom, there you go. And I'm seeing a lot of this, itching ears. That's a good way to put it, Mr. Green, itching ears. And this maybe gets back to the issue, and maybe I've repeated myself on this, so I apologize if this is all new, if this is not news to you. But the vision of leadership in much of American Christianity, as typified by someone like a Chandler or a Driscoll, or even say a Bill Hybels, not leaving them out of this either, is the strong, aggressive leader who protects the flock and then purges those from the flock who aren't submitting to his leadership, or usually his leadership. And so you're seeing a sort of aggressiveness. You're seeing sort of, oh wow, he's using a very deep voice. He's getting very angry, and he's this. Whereas, that passion is seen as a quality of leadership. That sort of kind of bigger than life, that push aroundiness, right? Where if a woman did it, of course, it'd be like, ugh, I can't say that word. What a naughty, what is this? It's like, and we look for that in certain guys as well. And so it's just interesting the standards we have set up for leadership and pastoral ministry in the church. And so I just think the whole thing is interesting. It's worth reading. What Julie has put out. I think it's telling, and I think it's frankly heartbreaking because, I mean, yeah, I mean, it's one of those things. You see all the circle of people that you surrounded yourself with, and shock of shocks, there's the fruit. Bad company corrupts good morals. It corrupts you. And I'm not saying, it's, it is this or is that, but it is the sort of thing where the company you keep does rub off on you. The company you keep does impact your character, your heart. If you're surrounded by machismo dudes who are all big on throwing their weight around, on leading with authoritarianism, on leading with their fists and not their heart and their brain, that's going to rub off on you. That was one of the things I had my own issue at my previous church was I didn't want to lead like that. That's not the kind of person I am. All right, so Jordan, my boy, what's good, Jordan? Am I the only person who thinks this has all been blown way out of proportion? Of course, joking is relative, and the elders and Matt confirmed that this isn't a sin issue. I don't know how much it's been blown out of proportion. I've seen Twitter. I try to keep my nose out of Twitter, to be honest. The only reason I found out about it was someone in one of my groups said something about it. My guess is, okay, so maybe this is why you're all here. So bring it all the way back. So what do I think what happened? One, I have no idea. And it's not really my place. But the fact that they're like, it's not a sin issue, I'm like, well, given how Matt has treated people in the past, has talked about people, has engaged in with his critics or not engaged, tells me that maybe this is a good time to be reflective and go, maybe Matt needs some self-reflective time. Take some time and just reflect on this, because I mean, in pastoral ministry, right, especially running Acts 20, doing all these sorts of things, it becomes very easy to, and this is a crude analogy, but it's very easy once the freight train gets going and you're going 100 miles an hour and you're pulling 500 cars behind you, you can't stop and you can't get off the most you can do is jump off the train. But the problem is who's steering the train, the tracks, I guess. But in pastoral ministry, it becomes very difficult to have sectioned off spaces and time and all that sort of stuff for family, for friends, for relaxation, for getting your mind clean, sabbaticals and stuff like that. And so maybe that's it. Maybe that tells us that we need to be more relaxed. But just given how people often treat others, tells me that whatever it is, I'm glad Matt's taking some time off. I think, based on how he's talked about people and treated people in the past and the circle he runs in, I think it'd be a good thing for Matt, at least at bare minimum, to take some time for himself and reflect and maybe try and get his heart right. Because I'll tell you this, I've watched his videos on all sorts of things. Heck of a way to get a sabbatical, right, Mr. Green? I was trying to be a little tongue-in-cheek with that. Sorry if that wasn't clear. There's certain Calvin or preachers like that I can listen to and be completely fine. Some of my Calvinist, complementarian friends, great preachers, great people, have no issue with them. We disagree theologically, and you're allowed to disagree theologically. But the company Matt kept and keeps seems to either he's been impacted by them or he's impacting them. At that point, you do have a sort of symbiotic relationship. If I hung out with a ton of dude bros, and all we did was smoke, and all they did was smoke cigars, ride motorcycles, fart, belch, and talk dirty about their wives, eventually, regardless of how much you may resist it, that begins to impact you. Same thing with, partying or college and all that sort of stuff. And so I think Matt should take this time. Let's assume the best, right? Assume this isn't a sin issue. I don't know if it is, because, character and temperament, that could be an indication of something. I don't know what it's an indication of, but if you've acted like how Matt has acted in the past and your people seem to always kind of fall off the wagon around you and keep being fired, maybe you need to get your heart right. Maybe you need to take some time for yourself. But I'll look at the chat right now. Heck of a way to, yeah. Jordan says, totally on board for time of reflection and taking a break to process all this. It just saddens me to see people celebrating this. Oh yeah, I'm not celebrating this, and I know you know that. I don't like seeing anyone go through this. I think it's a very difficult thing. But the thing that bothers me, and maybe this gets us back on track a little bit, or at least me back on track, is I want to hear I want to hear to the amount that she's comfortable saying it, the actual like what's her side of the story, the woman, because the woman to confront a pastor in a foyer or a lobby, that takes a steel backbone, and the fact that she did tells us something about her character, and also tells us that maybe the woman didn't feel comfortable, the other woman didn't feel comfortable with this, and I think I want to hear that side of the story before I give, and I think we all should before we give Matt a pass, because I've seen a lot of people on the on Twitter. Just in the 5 seconds I looked, going like, oh, well, we don't know anything, so Matt's fine. Basically giving Matt a complete pass for this. And I'm like, hold on. We've seen this story before, not necessarily even with Matt, although we have seen a little bit with this, how he's treated people and talked with people in his circle of influence. But let's, in light of Bill Hybels and Mark Driscoll, do we just assume the best of our favorite pastors and theologians? I mean, Jean Vanier. Oops, sorry. Did I hit up? Karl Barth, did some seems to have done some pretty awful stuff. And once you allow your hero to still be your hero and get Ravi Zacharias, there we go, another one. Once you allow your hero to get away with stuff you would never accept from your enemies, then we've done something wrong here, and we've already capitulated, we've already fallen off the wagon, we've already compromised the integrity of the body of Christ. And so I just want to insert that caveat because I probably should have. I'm doing this live, which is probably the worst way to do it, but let's see. Ben says, I've met him. He was very kind and took a lot of time with me. That's cool. I'm glad you did. Like I said, I don't know the guy from Adam. If you walked up to me and said hi, I wouldn't even know what to say to him. Be like, oh, hello. I don't know who you are. If I spent like 5, oh yeah, you're Matt Chandler. Oh, I'd be like, oh, you still got Instagram on your phone? I'm the kind of person that would just make us. I'm kind of a smart aleck. Yeah. Dude, bro, Theo, bro. Yeah, Theo, bros. I mean, yeah. I can't deal with it just because. Yeah. Hey, Linda, how's it going? But yeah, Jordan, I'm glad you and I are the same way on this. I want to hear from that side of the story. I don't want to just hear oh, well, nothing. It's not a sin issue. It's none of this, but we're giving him a leave of absence. I'm like, hold on. These two things do not match. I want to see more. I want to know what's going on. And the only reason I want to know what's going on is not because of some sort of gossipy thing or anything like that, but because rarely do you hear the other side. And what almost always happens is you give deference and grace to the party accused. We always go, oh, it's fine. Then it turns out, oh my gosh, how deep does this go? And so, the reactions, Ben, yeah, the reactions are wild. I'm not talking about the crazy people on Twitter losing their minds. I don't make policy or decisions based on wild reactions. I think we should all want to know what's going on, just bar none. Assess the evidence. I mean, if this is a trap, then, that's bad. But if he did this, and the way I see it too, maybe this is a good way to sum it up before I take up all of your time and we don't get to ask me anything on NT stuff. It's too easy to give a pass to your friends. It's too easy to give a pass to your tribe. And I see that happening a lot. And I think and this is where I'll stop here, is it's as bad as they say it is, which means it's certainly not better, and it could be a lot worse. And for the sake of both of them, and we don't even know this woman's name, so I wish I had a name, I hope for the sake of them, it's only as bad as it sounds. That's kind of what I'm thinking. But that's what I've seen. That's from Julie Roys. I think she's a competent and insightful commentator. Disagree with her on stuff. I disagree with myself on stuff. There's some videos I looked back I did. I'm like, I shouldn't have said that, kind of thing. But all this to say, hopefully there's justice. Hopefully there's righteousness. Hopefully there's mercy. And hopefully there's forgiveness. And hopefully there's restitution and reconciliation, right? Maybe that's a way of summing all this up. Jordan says, all I'm saying is that from what has been said so far, I feel like everything is overreacting and thinking the worst. But big but here, we need to hear from her. Yep, we agree. I think most people are also assuming the best, and that's where I have an issue as well. It's like, oh, Matt would never do this. I'm like, You tell me a man in power would never do something bad? We have stories of that all over the place in the Bible. Everyone from David to King Herod. So people in power, men too, tend to can do pretty bad things. But I know you agree with me, Jordan. I'm not saying anything you don't agree with. All right, so Tim asks, what's the point of the mega churches? Seems like their pastors always end up in these kinds of situations. And Linda says, it's like people haven't learned anything in the past couple of years. I'm kind of in a wait a week camp on pretty much every breaking news. Yeah, same here. It's like, well, that sounds bad. I'll wait until wait for the dust to settle, give it a couple days. But what's the point of the megachurch? I honestly don't know. I don't have any ethical point or ethical issue with megachurches. I look at megachurches kind of like I view, megachurches. I kind of view megachurches like I view megachurches. I think they can be good. I think, I just don't see a lot of. And of course, the issue is, what is a megachurch? How many people defines a megachurch? Is it 500? Is it 1,000? In my mind, the bigger a church gets, the more difficult it becomes to have an actual community. You can have kind of tribalism because, I go to this church and we do this and this and this, which can lead, of course, to all sorts of things as well. But I think it's just harder to have a genuine community with so many people. But I'm saying that as an introvert, right? I'm saying it completely as an introvert who does not like 1,000 people staring at him, Most megachurch pastors aren't this exciting. Ben says, celebrity pastors you have to watch out for. Yeah, although it's true. I mean, just because someone has a megachurch doesn't mean they're a celebrity pastor. That's true. That's a good point. I'd say generally you're probably a celebrity pastor in the community or in the city or in the realm that you kind of are, but I think that's absolutely a fair point. One day. 2000, maybe it might be 2000. Last I saw it was anywhere. Some people have said 750, and the reason I'm doing this is I don't have a fan in here in AC. We don't actually have AC or functional AC in the duplex upstairs. But anyway. But yeah, mega churches, nothing against them, but I think at the end of the day, I would just rather churches be a family over a corporation. And if you can have a family of 1,000 believers in Christ, by all means, do it. I'd love to see how that works and love to see the fruits of that. Jordan Evans, New Testament question. My dude. Recently heard a lecture from Ben Witherington where he believes Junia is Joanna to be the same person. I've never heard this. And Kelly, I'll quickly jump in with this. Has anyone heard from this woman yet? I've not seen anything from this. And what her take is, I have no idea. And I agree with you. We were talking just earlier. I think we all want to hear her side of the story. I think everyone wants to give her a chance to be heard. But Joanna, I think that's absolutely plausible, 100% plausible. Witherington, I think he mentioned, is Junia is the direct Latin equivalent of Joanna. And Joanna in Luke's Gospel, Luke chapter 8 and Luke chapter 24, it fits up with Junia in Romans 16, where you have Junia and Andronicus, perhaps a couple, we don't know. I think it's entirely plausible that you could have. So what you have, and I'll get into this more in my video on Junia. I plan on, Junia's way in the distance, but I've got probably 3.5-4 hours of content I plan on releasing on Junia. Just every word in that sentence being looked at. There's been a couple influential within complementarian circles, but not influential in the wider scholarly community about Junia being not an apostle. So we'll get into that. Suffice to say, I think if that convinces you, you probably were already a complementarian and Junia was already kind of an issue for you. Not to be rude, but that's just kind of, it's not, I don't think they are good arguments. And I think they're born out of very select sorts of things. But I'll get into that with Junia. But I think it's very plausible that Joanna and Junia are the same person in the New Testament. And I think what strengthens this is not that the name equivalency, it's actually they were in Christ before him, which means they were probably not only Christians, but also involved in Christian ministry way before Paul and were in prison. And so that puts their conversion date way before Paul, and Paul's conversion was very close to the time of Jesus' death. And so my suspicion is Joanna and Junia are the same person and are apostolic missionaries that went to Rome as part of the great moving out and all that sort of stuff. So I see 100%. I think it's very plausible, and I think it makes good sense, and it ties Paul, quote, with the, quote, historical Jesus. And you have a direct link between apostolic missions. You have a direct link between ecclesiology. You have a direct link between people who knew Jesus and can testify to Jesus, and all that sort of stuff. So I think it's a really cool hypothesis, and it has an enormous amount of apologetic freight as well. And in addition, just being, I think, very likely historically. So that's my thought on Junia and Joanna. I think it's very, very likely, and I think it strengthens the case of women's leadership in the early church, but also the impact of women and the historical Jesus as taken together in the early mission of Matthew 28, right? Go into all the world and preach the gospel and make disciples of all nations. Oh, by the way, what's good, Matt? Good to see you, MJ. Good, bro. Ben asked, New Testament question, when are you making more content with MJ Jackson? Well, the answer is whenever MJ has me on. I know he's busy doing his thing. Whenever he has me on is when we'll be doing more content. I know we've been wanting to talk about a bunch of different stuff. I know I've been wanting to get in touch more with Adam Coleman, Mr. Coleman, and see what he's got going on. Big fan of both of those dudes. Let's see. Salem, are very many Wesleyans, are there a lot of Wesleyans who are Baptists? I thought Wesley believed in baptismal regeneration, but I could be wrong. I actually don't know what Wesley believed about baptism. I've got several books of his that I need to read. It's entirely possible that he did. There's a reason why Wesleyan modifies Baptist, because I think at heart I'm a Baptist, but theologically I'm too close to Wesley and Wesleyanism and Methodism to just be a Baptist. And so it's one of those where I don't know. I actually asked a friend of mine who's a Methodist, and I was like, here's what I believe. And he's like, so you're a Nazarene? And I said, maybe, but the problem is I enjoy a drink every once in a while and a good cigar or some pipe. And very much more rarely, I haven't had either in like 6 months. And actually, no, we've been here. Yeah, it's been about 5 months since I've had either one. I might have to go have one. We'll see. But yeah, you can't do that and be a Nazarene or be a. I mean, they might. Some churches might. It might be an issue where they're willing to have a discussion about it, but there might be that. So it's one of those where it's like I can't call myself a Nazarene. Basically, I'm a Baptist who loves John Wesley and would basically go to bat for Wesley at any point. So that's, and I believe in prevenient grace. The only thing I don't know if I believe in is the Wesleyan view or the Methodist Wesleyan view of church governance. And I'll, cause I'm a Congregationalist. I'm the local church decides. But I'm not opposed to their ecclesiology. And also, baptizing infants, I wouldn't say I affirm that, but I'm not in this. I don't think it's like heretical or unbiblical, like you're evil if you do that or believe that. I just think the better evidence and the better arguments tend to be in favor of believers' baptism. But I don't rule out infant baptism as impossible or sinful or anything like that. I play nice with most people. So moving on. Let's see. Linda, Reed Junia, Joanna, I can see a lot of complementarian heads exploding. Yeah, I can see that. Most people are, when they actually confront the actual evidence and try to put their stuff aside, I think most people are more just overjoyed that the fact that you have that link between the two. I've had complementarians become egalitarians, not on the basis of that, but that certainly helped. So there's that as well. Are you aware of any female bishops or elders in the early church? Well, the early church is interesting in that point. I would say that I don't see a lot of male elders in the New Testament. I also don't see a ton of that going on. I don't see that formalized sort of church leadership, and I've gotten into that with other videos. I also don't think that you can do something where I don't want to get too far into this because I plan on having a series on women. I'm finishing up the series on women. Well, not finishing up, looking to continue that. I would say in terms of how they function and what they do, elders are not mentioned in most of the Pauline letters when it comes to, say, Corinthians or Romans, where you do have women doing all sorts of things. So I think having a model of elder or bishop or something like that is fine. But I would also say that given what I think Paul's contextual ecclesiology allows, you can have that sort of thing there, and you wouldn't necessarily have that for numerous reasons. One would be cultural reasons. Two would be issues of we just don't have, we do have a lot of archaeological and painting evidence that suggests that women had a very similar role to that. But that stuff is a little bit shaky because of dating, but I think it's interesting. There's been some information and material coming out on that. But I just look in the New Testament and go, okay, in 1 Corinthians, you have pneumatic ecclesiology with some guidelines, right? It's not just a free-for-all. And so I go, okay, the ecclesiology of 1 Corinthians does not suggest at all, as far as I can tell, that women are excluded from any of the gifts, whether apostles, prophets, all this sort of stuff. It's like, okay, so that's fine. Same thing with Romans, same thing with Galatians. The only issue you run into is with the pastorals. And even then, and I think a lot of complementarians I see conceding this, that the requirements for, quote, bishops or elders, or however you render that, I think we often assume a more formalized understanding of those words than is warranted, at least in the New Testament context, don't necessarily in of themselves exclude women. And that's been conceded by, I don't want to get this right, I know Thomas Schreiner concedes that, and perhaps Douglas Moo, but I could be wrong. I don't want to attribute them too much. So I'll say perhaps Douglas Moo, and I think Thomas Schreiner has said that as well. And so the question of, can you point to a name or something like that, I think just asked the wrong question, because it basically assumes a sort of second century ecclesiology that I don't think is found in the New Testament. I think the New Testament has I think the New Testament ecclesiology is the body of Christ, that sort of kind of foundation. And then from there, you have multiple expressions of that, where it would be something like a more structured or formal ecclesiology, but even then that's debatable. Or versus, say, 1 Corinthians, where you have a pneumatic ecclesiology. The Spirit has kind of guided everything. And also you have the issue of house churches, and you don't have a formalized church setting like a temple or anything like that either. And so it's one of those, I look at that question, not just because you said it, Jordan, or anything like that, but I see the question of all this sort of stuff kind of being postulated. And it's like, I think the question arises from the presumption that the church that we have now is very similar to that in terms of location, style, placement, economics, and all that. And I don't think that's a helpful model. I think looking at the New Testament and allowing it to dictate the questions we ask when it comes to women in ministry and anything else really is what's necessary. Otherwise, you wind up basically in some really interesting territory that I don't think is warranted. MJ Jackson. I will definitely be reaching out to Nick in the month of October for justification and apocalyptic content. Oh boy, apocalyptic content. It's the end of the world, as we know it. And MJ feels fine. So, we've been going for about 40 minutes. I don't know if we want to keep going. Let's see. What's good, Ethan? How's life treating you? How them babies doing? Sorry, I'm turning off a few tabs. I suspect. Let's see. Would I believe in substitutionary atonement and the imputed righteousness of Christ? Yes, no. I believe in substitution. I have no problem with substitution. Imputed righteousness, no. I don't think that's a helpful category for interpreting Paul. Specifically, I think it's more likely that Morna Hooker and others are right when they talk about the exchange versus imputation. Exchange versus imputation. And I think having that model makes better sense in terms of economics and ransom language, say in Mark 10, or even Paul. You see a sort of transference from one stage into the other, but but imputation, I think, is just not a helpful category. It doesn't fit with kind of a Jewish idea there. You have identification and representation, but I don't think you have imputation. And that's been conceded by numerous Reformed theologians. Mike Bird, I don't know if he's conceded that it's this or that, but I know he's modified it greatly to the point where I look at it and go, I'm not sure that's imputation anymore. Now, I have his book. I have many of his books. I don't know where they all are, but let's see. Salem asks, any Wesleyan systematic theology that you would suggest? I really want to learn more about the. Okay. So Wesleyan systematic theologies, incorporated righteousness. Yeah, incorporation I think is a better framework, or at least is less crazy. I mean, and I use crazy in a loving way, like, all that. I believe crazy things too. Systematic theology 1 is it in here? Oh, yeah, one sec. This is A Wesleyan Holiness Theology by J. Kenneth Grider, forward by Thomas Oden. There's stuff in here I disagree with. There are a few things I would disagree with. I don't think are particularly compelling. The other one would be Thomas Oden's, although he doesn't argue strictly for his Wesleyan or Methodist kind of stuff, but it is in there. His Systematic Theology by Thomas Oden's really good. Thomas Oden edited wrote a 4-volume John Wesley theology. I can't remember exactly what it is, but it's 4-volume. It's by Zondervan. I don't know if do I have it? I don't. Oh, I'll find it. Yeah, it's right over here. I'll just grab that because I got time. All right, so it's they're all edited by Thomas Oden, the late great Thomas Oden. They're called John Wesley's Teachings, 4 volumes of them. So you have stuff on ethics and society, you have it on pastoral theology, you have it on Christ and salvation, you have it on God and providence. And it's kind of his commentary plus extended quotes. And that one's good. Another one would be getting John Wesley's explanatory notes on the New Testament. You can probably get that for free. Wesley was wide awake. Wesley was awesome. Is awesome. Another one would be, what's a good one? Kenneth Collins. I think it's John Wesley's Theology, I think is what it's called, or a Theology of John Wesley or something like that. I forget. It's with Abington Press, and it's a really, really good book as well. Really, really solid. And he teaches at Asbury. Amazing historical theologian. All right, so a few more questions or comments. Ben asked, I've not heard of an exchange model, but I'm on the infused side. So yeah, I mean, infused, yeah. The exchange model is much more of a patristic kind of way of reading it, especially when you tie ransom or the Christus Victor / ransom theory of, you wouldn't even call it atonement per se, the ransom theory of atonement. It's more like ransom is the means by which we are bought. So I'm not sure. I'll have to get more into that. Would most people who believe in imputed righteousness believe in old perspective on Paul? Yeah, probably 90% of it. There is it's the Lutheran Paul or the Reformed Paul, although which Reformed? Obviously, you have the Bardian Paul, or what I don't like calling it. There's the Bardian Paul, and then there's the Apocalyptic Paul. I'm starting to get kind of annoyed at watching Bart be used as the lens by which we read Paul without clarifying. But that's because me and Bart have a love-hate relationship from before the foundation of the earth. Let's see. I used to think of myself... let's see. Tim the H. I used to think of myself as a complementarian, but I noticed I kept adding asterisks and nuances to my position until I couldn't figure out why I cared about the label. Yeah, that's kind of where I ended up, to be honest, bro. It was one of those where... I mean, I talked about this on my video in women ministry, or the first video, so I won't rehash it. But basically, I'm like, well, okay, I'm keep making exceptions, keep doing this. And, okay, this just isn't working, especially when I believe in complementarity, that my wife and I are complements to one another and all that. So, MJ says, I was able to get my hands on Oden's original 3 volumes that came out back in the day. Yep, he has a 1 volume now, but it was originally 3. They're big books. It's dry, unfortunately. I feel like systematic theology shouldn't be dry, but it kind of was or is. Wesley was woke. That's right. Hazen, I think MJ says, let's see. I think I might do a show with you, Nick, using that book by Oden on Wesley's ethics. You mean, let's see. Where is it? Ethics and Society. If you have, it's a 4 volume set by Zondervan. I think it's probably like $40-50. Lovers of Money. Their hearts are full. Yeah, this would be a good one. Yeah. Did I see John's recent video on Bart and Apocalyptic? No, but I've read a bunch of the stuff on Bart and Apocalyptic, so I probably know some of the sources he cites and engages with. What's Apocalypse? Oh, that's not Apocalypse Now. It can't be that. What's that one? Oh my gosh, I'm a terrible friend. What's him and Laura's channel? Apocalyptic Now? No, that can't be right. Oh, anyway, I'm not gonna butcher myself with that. Anyway, say Ethan, put it in the chat. Okay, for the love of me, I'm blanking on it. I literally just put in John Apocalypse here. That's it. Apocalypse here. I always put John DePew in my chat and just go find him that way. So I actually forgot the name of the channel. Yeah, interesting channel. A lot of fun stuff. A lot of great stuff going on there. Nice guy. Super passionate. Lots of fun. Definitely go give him a sub if you prefer a more progressive kind of way of thinking in Christian theology. But very smart, very fun, and yeah. Oh yeah, you and him are working together. Oh yeah, that's right. I thought I saw that on social media. Congrats, Ethan. That's awesome. Yeah, that'll be a fun working relationship. Let's see. Any more? Let's see. We've been going for 46 minutes. This has been a pretty productive live stream. I'm kind of impressed with y'all entertaining me this long. Any other thoughts or comments, questions before we sign off? Sorry, scratch my mic a little bit right there. Maybe do one more question if y'all have it, or if not, I'll peace out. And my son's he's been asleep for 40 minutes, so I wouldn't be shocked if he's gonna wake up. And I go to work in about 3 hours, so I'll have to get ready to go and all that. But unless there are further questions popping up, blessings to all of you. Thank you for taking the time. Keep the situation and with the village church in your prayers. Keep the woman in your prayers, that justice would be done, that righteousness would roar down, and that we don't need to know anything that happened, but that she would have justice if there is justice that is needed, and that Matt would learn. I mean, it's one of those things where you hope you learn from anything, right? I hope if I've been like that, I hope have the tenacity to learn and grow from it and apologize and move forward and stuff. But yeah, thanks Salem, Mr. Green. Y'all have a good one. I've got the Romans 9 video almost done. I've just got to finish verse 5, which is very, very grammatically pesky because everyone writes about that verse and no one agrees on what it says. So it's like, oh, fun. I get to wade into that. So Ben, you have a good one. MJ, you have a good one. Salem, you have a good one. Ethan, y'all have a great afternoon. May the Lord bless you. May the Lord keep you. May his face shine down upon you. And until next time, cheers. And that was just water for the record.